The landing was rougher than expected. Captain Jack Miller's hands gripped the armrests of his seat as alarm screamed in the cramped confines of the drop pod. "Brace," he barked over the comms. The fiery descent rattled their teeth as atmospheric turbulence slammed them around like a child's toy. A jarring impact cut the alarm short, plunging the cabin into a heavy silence, broken only by the hiss of cooling metal. "Everyone intact?" Jack's voice was steady, but the tension in his shoulders betrayed his concern. "Just another day in paradise," muttered Sergeant Mike Torres, unstrapping himself and flexing his fingers to check for injury. The military man's frame filled the pod, his movements deliberate and calm despite the chaos. "Systems fried," Luke Harris, the team's mechanic, reported from the console. The wiry engineer's fingers flew over switches and screens. "We're grounded, and I'm guessing the locals aren't rolling out a welcome mat." Dr. Ethan Carter, their biologist, peered through the small viewport. The alien landscape stretched out before him, a twisted jungle of blackened trees with bioluminescent vines snaking between them. Shadows moved in the dim light, darting shapes too large and too quiet to be comforting. "We're definitely not alone," Ethan said, his voice low. Jack unholstered his plasma rifle, the weight of it grounding him. "Then we stick to protocol. Establish a perimeter and get this ship operational. Luke, I want comms up yesterday. Ethan, see if you can figure out how we survive out there without getting eaten." The airlock hissed open, and the stench of sulfur hit them like a wave. Torres stepped out first, his rifle sweeping the perimeter in practiced arcs. The ground squelched underfoot, a damp, rubbery texture that seemed to shift subtly beneath their weight. "Feels alive," Torres said, disgust lacing his tone. Ethan knelt, pulling a small scanning device from his pack. "Because it is. Microbial network in the soil, maybe even symbiotic with the plants." He didn't look up. "Don't step on anything that moves." The warning came too late. A shriek split the air as a spiny, crab-like creature lunged from beneath Torres's boot. The soldier's reflexes kicked in. A burst from his rifle reduced it to smoldering chunks. "Fantastic," Luke muttered, hauling a toolkit from the pod. "We've been here 5 minutes, and Mike's already picking fights." "I don't pick fights," Torres shot back, his grin sharp despite the tension. "They just find me." Jack raised a hand, silencing them. The jungle's ambient noise had shifted a low, thrumming hum that made the hairs on the back of his neck stand up. "Weapons hot. We're being watched." The first attack came without warning, a blur of motion from the tree line, and suddenly they were under siege. Jack caught a glimpse of their attackers, tall, insectoid figures with segmented armor glistening like polished obsidian. Their movements were unnaturally fast, their weapons organic extensions of their bodies. "Contact!" Jack's shout galvanized the team. Plasma bolts lit up the darkness, but the creatures were agile, darting between cover with predatory precision. One of them lunged at Ethan, claws extended, but Torres's shot dropped it mid-air. "They're testing us," Jack realized aloud, his mind racing. "Probing our defenses." "Bad news for them," Torres said grimly, reloading his rifle. Luke ducked behind a shattered wing of the pod, his hands busy rigging a makeshift defense turret from the ship's remains. "Buy me a minute," he yelled over the din. Ethan scrambled to his feet, clutching his scanner. "Jack, these things aren't just animals. They're coordinated. They're—" "Later," Jack cut him off, firing into the tree line to suppress another charge. The skirmish felt endless, but suddenly, as quickly as it had begun, the attackers retreated. "What just happened?" Luke asked, standing cautiously from his cover. "They were testing us," Jack repeated, his gaze fixed on the jungle. "And now they know what we can do." The group fell into an uneasy silence. Jack ordered a sweep of the area, ensuring no stragglers remained. As the others worked, Ethan knelt beside one of the fallen attackers, its segmented body still twitching. He reached out hesitantly, his curiosity outweighing his caution. "Careful," Torres warned, keeping his rifle trained on the creature. Ethan ignored him, gently touching the creature's exoskeleton. To his surprise, the remaining segments clicked together in what he could only describe as a defensive flinch. "They're alive even after this," he murmured. "This is more than biology. It's engineered." Jack joined him, his expression unreadable. "Save the science lesson for later. Can we use this thing against them?" "Maybe," Ethan said, already scanning the creature's structure. "But we need to learn their systems first. This isn't just a fight anymore. It's survival." Back at the wreckage, the team set up a makeshift perimeter. Luke's turret hummed to life, a crude but functional deterrent. Ethan dissected the alien, his fascination tinged with grim determination. As night fell, the jungle came alive with glowing eyes and guttural calls. The team took shifts on watch, each man hyper-aware of the thin lines separating them from the hostile world. Ethan sat near the remains of the alien creature, his scanner blinking rhythmically. Something small and insect-like crawled out from the underbrush, drawn by the glow. Before he could react, it climbed onto his hand. Torres noticed and raised his weapon. "You want me to fry that thing?" Ethan shook his head. "It's not attacking." He studied the creature, its movements deliberate but non-threatening. It clicked softly, its limbs brushing against his glove like it was trying to communicate. Jack approached, his rifle slung over his shoulder. "What do you make of it?" "I think it's curious," Ethan said, his voice tinged with wonder. "Not all of this world wants to kill us." "Let's hope you're right," Jack said, though his skepticism was clear. As the team settled in for the night, Jack stood watch, his gaze fixed on the dense jungle. This planet wasn't just hostile, it was alive in ways Earth could never be. Every shadow, every sound carried a threat. But humanity had faced impossible odds before, and Jack knew they'd do it again. For now, survival was their only mission. Tomorrow, they'd start finding a way to fight back. The jungle was relentless. Days blurred into nights as the team worked tirelessly to secure their position and outthink an enemy that seemed designed to break them. Jack stood at the edge of their perimeter, scanning the tree-line where flickers of movement teased his peripheral vision. The Kravlak were still out there, watching, waiting. Ethan knelt a few feet away, sketching patterns in the soil beside a cluster of strange, glowing fungi. At his feet sat the insect-like creature he'd dubbed Click. The small alien had become a constant presence, shadowing him whenever he ventured beyond the shipwreck. "You sure about that thing?" Torres asked, his rifle slung lazily over one shoulder. "He's harmless," Ethan replied, not looking up. "And surprisingly smart. Watch." Ethan pointed at a vine hanging from a nearby tree. "Fetch," he said firmly. Click hesitated, then scuttled up the tree with startling speed, severed the vine with its mandibles, and dropped it into Ethan's waiting hands. Torres snorted. "Great. Man's making friends while we're fighting for our lives." "Not just friends," Ethan countered. "Allies. This planet's creatures aren't just threats. They're tools if we can understand them." Jack joined them, his face drawn from exhaustion. "You think you can train more of these things?" Ethan nodded. "With time. They're intelligent, adaptive. Some of the larger ones might even be capable of basic commands." Jack's gaze lingered on Click before shifting to the jungle. "Do it. If we're going to survive, we need every advantage we can get." Back at camp, Luke was buried in alien tech scavenged from their fallen attackers. Wires and strange organic components littered the ground around him as he muttered curses under his breath. "How's it going?" Jack asked, crouching beside him. "Like trying to rewire a toaster with spaghetti," Luke said, not looking up. "Their tech's half machine, half organism. But if I can crack their neural systems, I might be able to hijack it." "Hijack it?" "Yeah. Turn their weapons into ours. Maybe even get into their comms. Learn what they're planning." Jack clapped him on the shoulder. "Do whatever it takes. We're running out of time." As the days wore on, progress was slow but tangible. Ethan expanded his menagerie, taming a small flock of bat-like creatures and a bulky, quadrupedal beast with armored plates that he nicknamed Tank. Torres, initially skeptical, began training the creatures for combat, his natural rapport with them surprising even himself. One afternoon, while testing Tank's endurance, a high-pitched wail pierced the air. The team scrambled, weapons drawn, as a group of Kravlak emerged from the jungle. This time, they didn't attack immediately. Instead, one of them stepped forward, larger than the others, with intricate markings etched into its exoskeleton. "They're not rushing us," Torres muttered. "That's new. Maybe they want to talk," Ethan suggested, though he didn't sound convinced. Jack stepped forward cautiously, his rifle at the ready. "What do you want?" The lead Kravlak raised a clawed hand, and a projection flickered to life, a hologram of Earth. Then, with deliberate precision, it shattered the image with a swipe of its claw. The message was clear. "No negotiations," Jack muttered. "They're here to wipe us out." The standoff broke as the Kravlak charged. This time, the team was ready. Luke's turret sprang to life, spitting plasma into the advancing horde. Torres unleashed Tank, who barreled into the fray, scattering the enemy with brute force. Ethan directed the bat-like creatures overhead, their sharp talons raking at exposed weak points in the alien's armor. Even Click joined the fight, darting between the Kravlak's legs to deliver precise, distracting bites. Amid the chaos, Jack moved like a force of nature, his rifle finding its mark with unerring accuracy. But the Kravlak were relentless, their sheer numbers threatening to overwhelm. "Luke," Jack yelled, "we need something big." Luke frantically wired together components from a salvaged Kravlak weapon. "Just a few more seconds. Make it fast," Torres shouted, cutting down an alien that had gotten too close. With a triumphant shout, Luke activated his creation. A pulse of energy rippled outward, and the Kravlak froze, their movements jerky and uncoordinated. "They're linked," Ethan realized. "You disrupted their network." "Not for long," Luke warned. "This thing's running on fumes." Jack seized the opportunity. "Push them back. Now." The team surged forward, driving the disoriented Kravlak into retreat. As the last of them disappeared into the jungle, the humans regrouped, their breaths ragged but victorious. "That was too close," Jack said, wiping sweat from his brow. Luke held up his makeshift device, now smoking and lifeless. "I'll need to rebuild it, but at least we know it works." Ethan crouched beside Tank, inspecting a shallow wound on the creature's flank. "They're learning, just like we are. Next time they'll adapt." Jack nodded grimly. "So we adapt faster." The victory, though hard won, felt tenuous. That night, as the team fortified their defenses, Jack stood watch alone, his mind racing. The Kravlak weren't just another enemy. They were a mirror of humanity, relentless and resourceful. But Jack had seen what his team was capable of. Ethan's creatures, Luke's ingenuity, Torres's unyielding strength. They were more than a match for anything this planet could throw at them. Tomorrow, they'd push the boundaries further. The Kravlak thought humanity was weak, but they were about to learn the truth. Humans didn't just survive. They thrived. The storm rolled in without warning. Lightning tore across the sky, illuminating the jungle in brief, blinding flashes. Rain fell in sheets, transforming the ground into a quagmire. Jack Miller stood at the edge of their camp, his jaw set as he watched the storm mask the approaching shadows. "They're coming," he said, his voice steady despite the pounding rain. Behind him, Torres tightened his grip on his rifle, the familiar weight grounding him. "Looks like they brought the whole damn family this time." Luke crouched beside a console cobbled together from alien tech and shipwreck scraps, his fingers dancing over the controls. "The pulse disruptor's ready, but it won't last long. If this doesn't work—" "It'll work," Jack interrupted, his tone brooking no argument. "Ethan, what's the status on the creatures?" Ethan, drenched but undeterred, was fastening a makeshift harness onto Tank. "Ready as they'll ever be. Tank's armored up, and the flyers are primed to harass their back line." Click perched on his shoulder, clicking nervously. The first Kravlak broke through the tree-line, its segmented body glinting in the storm's light. Dozens followed, then hundreds, their screeches rising over the thunder. The team stood firm, their defenses a fragile bulwark against the oncoming tide. "Hold!" Jack barked, his rifle raised. The Kravlak surged forward, a living wave of claws and chitin. Jack opened fire, his team following suit. Plasma bolts tore through the front lines, but the aliens kept coming, their numbers seemingly endless. "Now, Luke," Jack yelled. Luke activated the disruptor, and a shockwave rippled outward. The Kravlak faltered, their movements stuttering as the neural disruption scrambled their coordination. Hit them hard, Jack ordered. Torres led the charge, flanked by Tank, who plowed into the disoriented aliens with devastating force. The flyers dove and weaved, targeting exposed joints and vulnerable eyes. Even Click leaped into the fray, small but ferocious, as it gnawed through a Kravlak's limb. Ethan directed the creatures with precision, his bond with them proving invaluable. Left flank Tank. Cut them off, he shouted, his voice cutting through the chaos. Despite the disruption, the Kravlak regrouped faster than expected. One of their leaders, a towering figure with blade-like arms, roared and charged toward Jack. Jack met the charge head-on, his rifle blazing. The alien's armor deflected most of the shots, but Jack sidestepped its swing and fired point-blank into its unprotected abdomen. The Kravlak collapsed, but another took its place, relentless and unyielding. They're adapting, Ethan called out, fending off an attacker with a makeshift spear. So are we, Jack growled, grabbing a fallen Kravlak's weapon. The organic blade pulsed in his hand, its alien design strangely intuitive. He turned it on his foes, slicing through their ranks with brutal efficiency. Luke's disruptor sputtered and died, the shockwave fading. That's it. We're on our own now. The Kravlak pressed their advantage, their sheer numbers threatening to overwhelm. Jack rallied his team, his voice cutting through the din. Hold the line. We end this here. Torres fought like a man possessed, his rifle an extension of his will. Come on, you ugly bastards, he shouted, cutting down another wave of attackers. Ethan's creatures fought alongside the humans, their loyalty unwavering. Tank took a blow meant for Torres, his armored hide saving the soldier's life. Luke, unarmed but undeterred, rigged a final trap. Get them to the pod, he shouted. Jack understood immediately. Fall back. The team retreated toward the wreckage, the Kravlak in pursuit. Luke triggered the trap, and an explosion engulfed the aliens, buying the team precious seconds. But it wasn't enough. The Kravlak leader emerged from the flames, unscathed and furious. It charged Jack, its speed and ferocity unmatched. Jack stood his ground, the alien blade ready. The clash was brutal, the leader's strikes faster than he could parry. A blow knocked the blade from Jack's hand, and the Kravlak loomed over him, ready to strike. Before it could land the killing blow, a deafening roar split the air. Tank, battered but unbroken, charged into the leader, slamming it to the ground. Jack seized the moment, grabbing the alien blade and driving it into the leader's chest. The Kravlak screeched, its body convulsing before going still. The remaining Kravlak hesitated, their leader's death rippling through their ranks. Jack stood tall, bloodied but defiant. Go, he growled. Tell the rest of your kind what happens when you mess with us. The Kravlak retreated, their movements uncoordinated and panicked. The jungle fell silent save for the rain, now a gentle patter against the scorched earth. The team regrouped, their breaths ragged. Ethan knelt beside Tank, running a hand over the creature's battered hide. Good job, buddy, he murmured, his voice thick with emotion. Luke collapsed onto a crate, exhaustion etched into his features. So, does this mean we won? Jack looked at his team, battered but alive, and then at the jungle where the Kravlak had disappeared. We survived. For now, that's enough. As the rain eased, the horizon lit up with the faint glow of approaching rescue ships. Jack allowed himself a rare smile. Humanity hadn't just survived. They'd proven their resilience, their ingenuity, and their indomitable will. And somewhere in the shadows of the jungle, the Kravlak would be spreading the word. Humans could turn anything, even the most hostile of creatures, into allies. And nothing was more dangerous than a species that could adapt to anything.